Welcome back. Glad you decided to join me. And if you're new, well, I hope this is interesting enough for you to want to check out some of the other presentations. Now, we're going to draw from Lorraine Artress's Walking a Sacred Path. And this is about, well, it's her exploration into the labyrinth, her spiritual experiences, the history that she's discovered that's connected with it, and some of the experiences that others have had. All of that is included in her book, Walking a Sacred Path, and this was published in 1995. And we're going to touch on a section called Reclaiming the Body, or rather, I should say, Transforming the Shadow. And unfortunately, a lot of the spiritualists, meaning spiritual people, spiritual authors, and such, well, she writes here that some of the new spiritualities deny the shadow side of life. Pain and suffering is seen as a creation of our own minds, and that many erroneously believe they need to suffer. Half-truths are taken as whole truths, and the mystery of pain and human darkness that sometimes shapes and motivates us is overlooked. Taking responsibility for ourselves easily gets confused with blaming ourselves. And Jung, she says, tells us that one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. And this is how the shadow is transformed. And the shadow has to come to light. And getting to know your shadow is the most important spiritual work you can do. So, what is this shadow side that not only her, but many authors refer to? And it's suggested that it is the unconscious or the hidden aspects of our personality, specifically those traits and desires and impulses that we deny, that we try to control, or that we feel ashamed of, that we blame for whatever is happening with us. My being disabled, having a mental or a cognitive delay, could be considered a shadow part of myself. Now, the thing that we have to keep in mind is that these are not bad traits. Even though people have villainized these traits, people who overeat, people who drink, people who lie continuously, these are not evil or bad traits. They are aspects of ourselves trying to speak out. And it is our responsibility to try to understand them. Consider this, and this is an example that's presented. A compassionate healer's shadow side could be someone who is deeply nurturing. They could be a spiritual guide or a caregiver. They're known for their empathy, patience, their ability to hold their space for others. And their shadow side could include, and I've experienced this myself, the shadow side would be the resentment that they might hold towards those who constantly lean on them, especially if they feel unappreciated. Yes, I sometimes feel unappreciated when I am doing things for other, donating my time, donating my skills to not necessarily a cause, but to a mission, to a path, however you want to choose it. And when they feel unappreciated, they get angry, resentful. Another thing that is suggested here is control may be disguised as caring. Yeah. Subtly manipulating people to stay dependent on you so that you feel needed. Don't tell me this doesn't happen, because it does. If it didn't happen, they wouldn't be basing movies or episodes on these topics. So it happens. People might avoid their own pain using the problems of those that they are caring for as a distraction. Therefore, if they are too busy taking care of this person, they don't have to worry about taking care of themselves, even though they are in desperate need of such care. And these people might even be afraid of being just an ordinary person or being powerless. I think criminal minds might classify this as the savior complex. And this is just an example. We all have those aspects of ourselves that we would rather, not admit to. In fact, part of the revolution in society regarding uh, transsexuals, lesbians, homosexuals, all of that is because they were fearful of being themselves. And there are a lot of famous people, movie stars, who pretended to be heterosexual when they were not, or when they were bisexual. So this sort of thing is not something that's just there, that just suddenly showed up. No, it's always been there. And these people might look around and they see others who are living a joyful life without having to worry about this big secret coming out. And it drives them nuts. It weighs heavy on them. That is a shadow part of their personality, of who they are, because they keep it hidden instead of accepting it. And part of accepting that and being accepted in society is not using a strategy that draws attention. That's what somebody would say is overcompensating. You don't need all of that. You don't need all that flash, all that fluff, all that sparkle. You just need to allow yourself to be who you are without treading on someone else's thoughts, beliefs, outlooks, and everything. It's like years ago, I remember these seminars and such where they would say, you don't have to identify a person's ethnicity when you are sharing information about them. You don't have to cause the other person to color their thoughts because you said this person was a black person, was a Mexican, was whatever. You don't need to include that to give a much more fairer description of the person, you just leave that out. Male and female was sufficient. It's the same thing here. You don't have to get into the details. You don't have to share details about yourself. I don't. Unless, of course, it's pertinent, such as my sharing, that I have that cognitive delay there that does not allow me to work a normal job, which causes me to be disabled. I struggled with that. I imagine other people have parts about themselves that they struggle with. Learning to accept this is to understand it. Myself, I thought I saw myself as a second-class citizen. I had to understand what I was going through. And the strategy that I used was I wrote a letter to myself. And I'm sure I've shared this strategy in other presentations, but I wrote a letter to myself asking, or not asking, but explaining how I felt. I put it down. I came back a few days. I read it. I said, okay. And I asked a question. Why do you feel like a second-class citizen? And I put it down. A few days later, I looked at it and I responded. And I reached a point to where I was able to let go of what I was and begin to reach towards something new, something different. I was integrating that shadowy aspect of myself. And it's these explorations into the shadow part of ourselves that we truly grow. Reading all these spiritual books, and I've got a lot of them. Care of the Soul by Thomas More, Buddhism in America by Al Rappaport. I've got lots of them. And you know something? They all have similar suggestions. You have to, in order for yourself to grow, you have to accept yourself. In order to accept yourself, you have to explore those aspects of yourself that you would rather not. If you eat too much, well, you need to understand why you are eating like that. What purpose does eating serve? Does it bring comfort? And if it brings comfort, is it the food itself that is comforting, or is it the distraction that it is creating? The same with chemical abuse. Is it the sensation that you seek to enjoy, or is it the distraction? And if it's a distraction, you need to explore what it is that it is distracting you from. If you drink to distract you from your problems, then you probably should examine what it is about those problems that you are experiencing that is troubling. For some of us, it's being overwhelmed. And in this society, we pound it in everybody's head that you have to do this yourself. Figure it out on your own. You're on your own with this. That is horribly wrong. And it's because of this that contributes to, well, we have a lot of mass shootings. Last time I looked at something, it suggested that there had been over 300 mass shootings this year alone, 2025, from January to the beginning of October. 300 mass shootings. Why? Because a lot of those shooters were marginalized, isolated. By whom? By the general public, by their families, by their community, by their peers. This idea of individuality without collective associations is killing us. We need to learn to reach out. It's not that we need to learn to reach out. We need to learn that it's okay to reach out to someone. It's okay to hold your hand out for someone to grasp, to steady them, to support them. We are all interconnected. If we are a community, we are connected. We need to help others. And by helping others, we help ourselves. This is a common thing. Pretty much all of your spiritual gurus teach this. And we're not here to just take care of ourselves. We're here to take care of each other. And through each other, we take care of ourselves. And I'm getting caught up in this. So let's look at something else that Lorraine Artress has to offer here. She tells us that the focus of self-knowledge is on the discovery of the shadow. If it continues to be denied, it will be projected outward onto others. This is what we see happening in the propagation of hate and tribalism. And mind you, this book was written in 1995, and this is 2025. And it's still happening. The individually disowned shadow is the engine behind collective racial hatred, homophobia, and religious wars. As righteous aggressors, we cannot see our hypocrisy. Well, now, religious wars, isn't that what we are slipping into with this whole idea of Christian conservatism moving into the political arena? Isn't homophobia something that is driving the conservatives to band together to adopt this idea that the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and so they side with Christian nationalists? Is that the reason? Because that is what collective racial hatred is. Don't think that racial is just a reference to ethnicity. No, it is very broad. The definition here is very broad because it can be applied to just about everything that is happening. So what is tribalism? It is the tendency of people to form strong groups, social, cultural, political, spiritual, strong groups that prioritize loyalty. And that's something we are seeing in our political landscape. Loyalty, it's being demanded within our federal government. People are being pushed out if they don't follow the status quo that has been established. Loyalty to that group above all else, loyalty to conservatism above all else, loyalty to Christian nationalism above all else. That is what is happening with us. And I'm getting too far into that, so I'm going to pull myself out of it. And let's look at some of what the core features of tribalism might be. In-group loyalty. We just talked a little bit about that. It's a deep emotional attachment to what you've associated yourself with, and it's expressed through a shared language, shared beliefs, shared rituals or habits. We are seeing this. This is playing out in the news media. Well, I don't know, news media, that's getting iffy now because they're all moving toward the conservative side to protect their collective behinds so they don't get pushed out, sued, whatever. Out group suspicion. This is something else that is being pushed out. It's a distrust or hostility towards those outside the group. Here we go again. Conservatives, everything that goes wrong is because of the lefts, the liberals, the socialists, the anything but themselves. With the government shutdown that is taking place, these are perfect examples. It's the only aspect of this that deals with spirituality is that these are parts of a person's personality that is considered the shadow side that should be explored. And this distrust and hostility to all of those outside of the group leads to stereotyping or scapegoating. Again, the blame game is what it's commonly referred to. They also adopt this us versus them thinking, which simplifies complex issues. They're all against us. We have to get rid of them, eliminate them, get them out of the way. And, rhetoric like that may have actually led to the death of, I think his name is Charlie Kirk. See, this is what Artress is referring to. And what might the shadow and light side of this tribalism concept be? Well, what's nice about it is that it fosters a sense of belonging, shared purpose, safety. These are good things. These are excellent things. It helps to preserve cultural wisdom, meaning that through the socialization within the group, you learn from them, they learn from you. The collective information base grows, becomes enhanced. The shadow side, well, these groups may also exclude others, maintain strict adherence to a dogma, or even promote violence. Again, stuff that we're seeing on our political landscape. Suppress individual thought or dissent. Again, we're seeing this play out on our political landscape. The calling together of high-ranking officials in the military and then separating them out. Suppressing dissent. There's a lot going on with this concept of tribalism. And what we have to keep in mind is that there are two paths that a lot of us try to travel simultaneously. There is the attempt to control ourselves and the denial of self-controlling, meaning that we get too far over into the shadow side and we create a neurosis within ourselves. If you like to use the ego term, that would be the super ego, because the ego is the one that kind of manages the super ego and the id, the overbearing aspect, self-control, too much, the impulsive aspect, gimme, you did this to me, I'm going to do that to you. That's what the ego does. It moves us between the two. So we have to wonder here, are people trying to oppress others? Because it appears that way when we see what's happening, not only in the political landscape, but this is happening within the spiritual community. I always thought that a spiritual person was someone who was compassionate, who was concerned with others, who was willing to assist when needed. But I'm seeing people who I was under the impression were spiritual, I'm seeing them supporting this whole idea of detention centers, this whole idea of voter suppression, this whole idea of conservatism versus liberalism, and that liberalism is wrong. This whole idea of oppression is being supported. So I don't know. What I do know is that people unknowingly oppress others in an attempt to save them from themselves, which is a common cliche. The parents use it. I'm trying to save you from yourself. It's a cliche. It's an excuse to oppress. Man, there's got to be a better word or another word than oppress, because that word just sounds too depressing. So let's go with, well, poor treatment. There we go. There we go. We treat others poorly because we're trying to save them from themselves. And in our treating them poorly, we deny them access. The interesting thing is that all that is considered evil oftentimes is, or I should say, are vain attempts to rescue others from perceived evil. Just because I think it's evil doesn't mean that it is evil. I may think it's evil because it is in direct conflict to my beliefs. Therefore, I'm going to make it evil. That's what everybody does. I'm not the only person that does it. And I catch myself doing it. I have to rethink things, which is what we should be doing. But this doesn't account for those given to impulsive behavior, but only to those who appear to be rational in their thinking and act accordingly to potentially and a to their potentially impaired perception. How does their perception become impaired? The shadow side, that side that they're trying to hide, that they're trying to deny, that comes out disguised as being good. Disguised as being good. So I want to leave you with this. The immanent God is found in our inner objective experience. It's within you. It's your dreams, it's your contemplation, it's meditation, it's within you. The immanent God is found within you. And to discover the voice of that inner world, of that immanent God, is to discover the voice of your soul. And when you discover the voice of your soul, you begin to explore that shadowy aspect, because you, not anyone else, you have divided yourself. What you show everybody, what you hide from everybody. Your good self, your bad self. You have divided yourself. And in exploring the shadow and understanding the shadow, you bring the two together and you become whole. And then when you hear the voice of the soul, it is you coming together, because the soul does not see us and them. The soul sees all. I want to thank you for your brief attention. I hope this was insightful. I hope this gave you something to think about. And if it did, consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you very much and enjoy your day.